Welcome to Holdback Podcast. My name is Jessica Hare. I operate Hare Hollow Farm, and we breed boas, balls, and select colubrids.
Hi, I'm Jana King. I operate ASM Royal Tails, and I breed high-end ball pythons.
We want to share our journey navigating herpetoculture and are dedicated to promoting biohazard safety for all species. And we would love you to answer the question, what's in your holdback rack? Correction, ladies and gentlemen. Justin was not at a show. He was doing his VIP tour last week, and so that's why there was no episodes. And he released his VIP compilation video this morning. I actually watched it, and it looked fun. Did you watch that video?
I am not on his Patreon.
Oh, it was on his normal vlog channel on YouTube.
Oh, I have not had a chance to look at that then yet.
I don't even know if there's anything.
Was that his Wednesday's video?
And he said Friday will return to normal sort of reveal of a combo. So there was candid shots that other people took of certain animals, and the Cyprus yellowbelly special clown did look nicer almost in someone's hand than it did in the video the week before. Okay. That's all.
That's fair.
No reports.
They've been trying some new videography techniques that I'm not a fan of. So I think that other people just shooting a straight video for their channels and stuff, I think would come across better, in my opinion.
I don't know if it's the color of the background in Justin's baby room, but sometimes the colors in that room look different than the colors when he does it in somebody's hand near the rack. It just looks different to me. I don't know if it's the software on the camera getting confused by the gray background or the lighting or something. I don't know. You know how that happens.
Yep. My
phone loses its mind if it takes a picture of anything pinkish or purple indoors, just in general. It's just this is white, I think.
I think we'll just pick white.
Let me just check white on the box, because I'm pretty sure that's white. And it's, it's like an orchid, cornsnake, or a snow, or whatever, something pink and fun. No, it's definitely white. Just the whole thing is just a wall of white.
Wall of white, boring white.
All right, that's it for Justin. I didn't have anything else. The video was kind of boring, honestly. It's just people having fun compilation, which is fine. But I don't know any of those people, really, except for High Desert. But everybody knows Antoine. I'm sure he gets around.
Do you know what tier you needed to be on his Patreon?
I don't know exactly. It's not the one I'm in. But I think it's the $100 a month one. The highest one.
What tier are you in?
25 or whatever it is. I just did the minimum tier to get my name on the end of his videos. It was sort of I wrote it off as a advertising expense, basically.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
His Patreon doesn't have, at my tier anyway, no concrete benefits in terms of percentages off, or this is for anybody else who wants to know also, because other ones do, even at very low tiers like Billy's. So I was just for $200 a year, I can have my name on a JKR video that a couple thousand people see. Maybe they'll read it. Probably not, because it goes by real fast, but it's there.
It's an advertising expense. You can write that off. I'm cool with that. I might have to start doing that with my Patreon subscriptions. I did my homework on the Super Copper.
Good job.
That I was assigned last episode.
How did you feel about it?
I feel like I need to learn how to import a snake from Europe.
It's very cool.
It's very, very cool. It's beautiful. It is in that dark family. Do we know if it's allelic with the 8-ball? It does look like a mahogany.
Which is not 8-ball.
But it has that same mahogany, super cinnamon type feel. The super, although, has a lot of textured pattern to it. Whereas I feel like the super cinnamon is kind of...
The super, for everybody at home, is very solidly dark snake, but not solid black. And it has somewhat of a dorsal kind of color variation. Not as pronounced as a super mahogany, where there's almost a dorsal stripe that's light.
Yeah.
It's almost in between a super cinnamon and a super mahogany in terms of color. That's why I'm I bet you
I would agree.
It's not a black pastel or 8-ball complex animal. It's a mahogany complex animal.
Do they have a name for that complex yet?
No.
Is Cyprus considered in the mahogany family?
No, right now Cyprus is My understanding is there have been people, though they haven't shown like offspring, that have, out of Cyprus spiders, made 100%. So it's a spider complex.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate. And this Cyprus spider is a train wreck, actually, too. So don't make those on purpose, anybody at home. Even though they do live, they just severe wobble.
Bongo and Cyprus, because bongo we've said is a wobble gene, so is it in the spider complex or the spot nose complex?
It is in the complex, but just because you have a wobble doesn't mean you're in the complex. But bongo just happens to also be in the complex.
Okay, so it's both. It has a wobble and is in that complex.
Yes.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see if it lines up in the spider-ish complex or if it's
copper.
It'll be interesting where it ends up.
It's probably the case that once we get down to brass tacks, there will only be like 5 complexes, and that will be it. Because the control of pattern is controlled by certain proteins, and you can only break them so many ways on certain alleles and not destroy the embryo altogether, right? So we will probably end up with, not including recessive complexes, just incomplete dominant ones, 5 or 6 is my assumption, once we get all the way down to it. And the same is probably true for all snakes everywhere, because you can only modify a gene in a new way so many times and in so many places, which is sort of cool too, because then you're not actually going to have an infinite number of morphs. You're going to have an infinite number of flavors of the same allele being broken in different ways.
Like cinnamon and Lori and HRA and black pastel?
Right. That's probably coding for a specific protein somewhere. And each mutation of it is breaking the protein in a slightly different position. So you either get more effect or less effect. So maybe
that's fascinating.
The black pastel is the strongest, most dramatic one. So it's more broken. So maybe 70% of the protein is generated. And it goes off to do its thing. And a Huffman, which it looks almost like normal, maybe 95% of the protein is generated. So the effect is less. That's like a severe oversimplification of what's happening, but
I like oversimplification. Thank you for that.
These Mendelian genetics are a point mutation. That's why we can sort of breed them discrete and have like a discrete morph with a discrete mode of inheritance.
Yeah, that's what you were trying to say to me, but you explained it in a complicated way with gravel and yellow belly.
They're allelic because they're acting at the same point in the genome, but they're acting slightly more strongly, one, yellow belly, than the other, gravel and or asphalt.
Okay. That's a really great way to explain it. That really helped me. Thank you. You had some homework. Did you watch the bongo clown?
I did. I didn't see a single wobble. I'm not sure what happened. I think you were just sick. They looked fine.
I was
to
the
me.
Wobble.
Yeah, you were wobbling and interpreted the video as wobbling.
That's totally fair. I was really sick. I got out my bongo yellow belly het clown and I turned him upside down. I ran him through my hands. I did all kinds of things and he didn't wobble a single bit.
Good job. I don't disbelieve that Instagram person, but what if the very minor wobble rate of bongo heterozygote is 1%? Then it literally does not matter to me. We can work around the 1%, place those in the right homes that are ready. But if it's more like 40%, which it doesn't sound like it even is that, that's a little high. So where is it in between those two numbers?
In the single form. In
the single gene form.
Because we're saying that the super shouldn't be done like the super spot nose.
I don't know. I haven't seen any of them in person, so what do I know? But my understanding is the super spot nose is worse than the super bongo. But they both wobble, and so you'd have to keep that as a consideration. But maybe if you want to do a possible super bongo pairing, because you're an adult and you will keep the homozygotes or place them in homes that understand what that is, knowing that the heterozygote is unlikely to wobble and is still able to be kind of sold into the pet market, maybe it's fine. I don't know. I'm not in charge. So I'm willing to have a nuanced approach.
For the chance of a super, that you want that super for yourself and your own breeding program.
Right. Since the super is
probably put that into a pet home.
It's probably fine and still less worse than the worst spider.
Okay.
Maybe. Report back. This time, I will accept a message from Instagram if you have a bongo that has a wobble. That's a heterozygote. Send me a message. Thank you. I would like to know just who has one, or if it really do.
Who has one? What's it doing?
Yeah, how severe is it?
Like,
yeah. Would
now,
like
does
to
a
know.
super sable wobble?
Yes, it's a bad wobbler.
Okay. And it's the same family of genes as bongo and spot nose?
It's also supposed to be, but
okay.
It's one of those ones where, like,
are they calling it the spider complex still, or is it getting a new name?
I don't know. I've only heard it referred to as the spider complex.
Okay. Oh, well, it needs a new name because
people don't like spider. It probably should just be called, like, the melanocyte distribution allele or something, because that's what it is. It's a mutation in either the formation or a signaler that's telling it to go somewhere at the right time or something like that. And so either too many melanocytes are going or not enough. And so not enough is a spider or a champagne. Too many is a blackhead or a sable or a chocolate. All allelic.
Okay.
Okay.
I have nothing more to add to that.
It doesn't really matter because we don't really know the exact mechanism. We probably won't for a long time. But it's just melanocytes, like, are what holds pigment, but also what, like, direct nerve cells to grow a certain way, and eyeball cells to come over here when you're an embryo. They're like, come over here, eyeballs. They're like traffic cops. So without them doing their job, you don't have, like, perfect production of a baby animal. So that's why spiders wobble. It's because there's not enough traffic cops directing the appropriate cells to the right spot, because we have done something to the production of melanocytes.
They're bad. We should not keep doing that.
I mean, all mutations are technically a defect. So what else, even in a non-defect animal, are we breaking? Like a Mojave, beautiful thing that it is. It is obviously has a point mutation somewhere, and that point mutation probably affects a protein that has more effects than just the appearance. Because most proteins have multiple uses.
Right, because we haven't done studies and mapped the genome of the ball python, we use visual cues to label our morphs, but we don't actually know what they're doing on the genetics side of it. Is that correct?
Right. Internally, we have no idea what the protein we just broke and are propagating is doing for that snake besides pattern. We're just guessing. But the ones where we don't see a negative effect in the heterozygote or the homozygote, there's probably still some sort of small effect somewhere. Like maybe it will live 75% of its hypothetical adult life as a... I'm literally guessing. I have no idea if that's true. But, like, there's all kinds of consequences. And in other species, like cornsnakes, the, like, quadruple homozygotes tend to be the weakest. Even though the individual morphs don't seem to do that bad, they're fine. But when you stack 4, those ones are the ones that, like, struggle to eat and don't grow as fast, and nobody really knows why. It's probably just there's too many little broken bits inside. Stacks up.
Interesting, because I don't feel like I've seen that
in a ball python.
In a ball pythons.
Nope. They seem okay. Maybe the stacking doesn't matter in the short term for a ball python. But what is it maybe in the long term? We don't know. It's hard to know.
It's interesting to be along the ride to figuring it out. Like, we get so much of the hobby has happened before I got into it. It's exciting that there's still a lot of things we don't know and are going to continue to see and learn in the hobby. Even though I've just gotten in, it's not all been done.
No, and it helps that we've only been doing ball pythons for 20 years or whatever. So how many, like, female life cycles, like breeding cycles is that? Like, how many generations?
Right.
So, like, if you had done it as fast as possible, 10 or something, 12. And then we were still importing new ones all the time. So how much, like, selective pressure has there been? Obviously some, but not enough. So how do we know much of anything? I don't know. We're all just guessing and hoping for the best.
We're all still in the infancy of the genetics of the ball python.
Yeah.
And how it's long-term effect of what we're doing. And they are still bringing in... Are ball pythons one of the only still being brought in wild caught, or is that widely across? Because there are some species of snakes that are no longer being imported or wild caught. So, like, what we have in captivity is what we have.
Right. That's usually because and a country closes, like Madagascar is like, I'm done. I'm not exporting anymore. Thank you. So all of Madagascar is closed to anything it used to export. But so some animals are no longer available because the country is closed, and some animals are no longer available because they've become endangered, and so they're CITES 1, like critically endangered or endangered. And some are no longer imported because they just can't be found, or the quotas don't do well or whatever also. So the market doesn't want them. Like we used to bulk import farmed iguanas from Central America, and we still do that a lot. But there isn't as much demand for that, so we don't do it. But those are basically wild caught because they're just like eggs that are collected and then hatched in outdoor pens.
Yeah, like I have an African import dinker. Just because it's African import does not make it a dinker, but I believe it's a dinker. But she was farm hatch. So like her mom was wild caught, brought in later eggs, and then they release the mom. And then they send the batches of babies over, like brand new, fresh babies to the U.S.
Right. So that does still happen in ball pythons, but it doesn't happen as much. So a lot of the moms now are going for leather because they don't necessarily need them to go back out in the wild. It's fine, though, probably. If you live in Ghana, you need that $2 USD to live for another week. Brian Barczyk got diamond pythons in, and the video was not particularly interesting, but just wanted to talk about Morelia because we haven't really touched on it at all, ever. How do you feel about diamond pythons, Jana?
They are gorgeous.
Oh
my gosh, they are so beautiful.
Would you go to Australia and put one in your pants and smuggle it out?
I might.
Okay, we'll keep that on the DL.
Two layers of pants. So are they considered in the same family? Obviously, they're a Morealis. Is that how you say it?
Morelia, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So they're in the same family as carpet pythons?
All pythons are in Pythonidae, right? Okay. So they share the family with ball pythons.
Okay, and then the next step down is...
genus. So yeah, Morelia is a genus. Is that what you're asking? So it's in the same
genus as carpet pythons?
Yes.
And then a subspecies, diamond is its own subspecies.
Well, they're their own species and subspecies. Spilota.
Okay, still a little fuzzy on that process, but I'm learning. They are beautiful, and I could see the appeal of having a pair of those, especially if you own a zoo and could have them on display. I didn't do a deep dive into any information on the species and breeding them, or if he's going to plan on breeding them. I just, looks wise, they are absolutely stunning, and I see the appeal. Although I think carpet pythons are absolutely stunning, but I don't think that's something that I would get into.
Why not?
What I have seen, although I come from the ball python world, so I'm sure they all just think that I'm lame, but it's a very bougie scene, and it's a very genealogical scene, and you have to buy from the right people with the right lines and have to be able to dictate your lineage, and there are lots of rules, and there are lots of big feelings about who you're allowed to breed your snake to and what results you're allowed to produce, and it's just very narrowing to me. And one of the things that I love about ball pythons is that it's very open and very do what you like, do what makes you happy, breed what makes you happy, make animals that you like to look at. And I feel like carpet pythons, while a beautiful species and very interesting, it's the opposite. It's very regimented and very linear thinking, whereas I feel like ball pythons, it's more artsy fartsy, do what makes you happy.
I have one thing to say. Don't you think ball pythons is regimented because you have to make the pairings that make the most financial sense in its own way?
I think that I'm learning that from you as a mentor, but that's not how I view myself in the hobby. I think sometimes you do that, and I think you gravitate away from things that I hear you talking about and I hear you excited about, yet you're not putting in your own collection. whether it be because of people not selling because you test, or because you don't think that the market is as high for those. I'm not 100% sure your reasoning behind that. You maybe could share that. But yes, you should make pairings that are profitable, but you should also be doing things that you like. You can do both. Like if you hate Desert Ghost Clown, make your hypo clowns. Like,
I honestly think, like, if you look in the mirror and you're like, if you really went to like a bin by bin assessment, even if you don't like Desert Ghost Clown that much, you almost should still probably run it anyway. That's how prevalent it looks to me in terms of what people are wanting. You know, you can't find a double hit DG Clown female for less than 1,200, 1,500, even a normal. Find double hit hypo.
It's got to be 1,500.
I think, double hit hypo clowns are $200 for 100%, or $250, like nothing.
That's fair. Yeah. You can get a visual hypo clown.
Yeah, for $1,500. Like, it's not a fair assessment of the look of the adults. There's an artificial whatever. So yes, you should not. It's hard to be like, you should have predicted in advance exactly what you wanted to do and position yourself correctly so you were ahead of the curve and able to harvest whatever.
Unless you have a building with 500 snakes.
Yeah. And then they're like, but you should also just do literally whatever you want, because you have to open up the tub every day and decide that that's something you want to work with.
So what you're saying is it's a bit hypocritical.
Yeah, it's 100% you're told both things by the same person. Like, work what you want, but also be ahead of the curve. Also, don't follow Justin. Also, have triple recessives right now. Don't follow Justin.
He's 20 years ahead of you and will always be 20 years ahead of you. Newsflash.
Right. He has like a collection depth where he can pivot around you in a way that you can't anyway, you know?
Every gene he has a rack of somewhere.
Yeah, like he's both deep and lateral. So he has the same gene 6 times, and he has the same gene deep with 40 incomplete dominants on it that are all perfectly matched. And so when he brings in a $10,000 male, he can make pairings that are cutting edge in 6 projects immediately. So I don't have a good answer for anything. But back to carpet pythons. I think they're beautiful. They're much more interesting than ball pythons, both from like an ecology standpoint, and like they have a big range. So there's lots of diversity within each subspecies of carpet python. They have different sort of breeding strategies. They're like cold weather pythons. So if you want a corn snake python, go get a breadlie. You know, it can tolerate temperatures in your house, basically, as long as it has a hot spot. You need to cool it down in the wintertime to get it to breed. That's much more interesting than a ball python. They're also big and red. Sign me up.
Yeah, we can't get red in ball pythons.
Yeah. My problem with carpet pythons is, to me, they compete with boas for space. They're bigger. They deserve to climb. They need a bigger cage than what you would put, than even like an FB70. They deserve an enclosure
with vertical.
Yeah, with something. Even if it's just like a Tupperware they can climb on and climb off of and move around and get into. Like that level of shelf should be a minimum. They also have their own sort of set of viruses that is different than the viruses that live in ball pythons. To me, they deserve their own room. If I had a ball python room, I would have a Morelia room, and I would have a boa room. Separate but equal, never to touch. So I would not be able to bring in Morelia into my ball python room and be happy with that arrangement. If I was going to get Morelia right this second, diamonds are beautiful, but they're still really expensive because it's hard to breed them. So they need to get really cold, but not die. So that's an interesting conflict for a python that's expensive. People don't get them cold enough to like trigger reproduction. So I would probably do pop ones because they're smaller, and just pick a selective breeding project and go to town. Have you ever seen like granite pop ones?
I actually don't even know what a poplin is. I need to be doing my next assignment is I'm going to do a little research project on carpet python.
Okay, or we could get
learn a little more.
Get somebody on, Kendra or something, and they could just talk about
That'd be fun.
Carpets. Yeah, I've never had a carpet. I just know about carpets. They're beautiful.
They're beautiful. They're fascinating. Every time I see one, I'm like, whoa, what is that? And it always ends up being a carpet.
And I agree that they're kind of bougie, but they're bougie on purpose because there's just not very many of their animal. So to protect
the bouginess.
or just to protect the subspecies, there's only 20 of this line in the whole country. So please don't breed it immediately to whatever. There are people who are morph people who breed it across subspecies or species.
But that's frowned upon.
Within the locality community, sure. But we're actually in a weirdly Morelia-centric part of the country because Nick Muttons is in Spokane, and you know who Nick Mutton is?
I've heard him mentioned on NPR.
All right, that's enough. He's like, so we're in a kind of carpet strong area. So if we wanted to get into carpets, we'd be in a good place to be able to just drive and pick up very high-end quality animals. And then I think about it and I'm like, oh, nope, not today.
Today.
I'd almost have to be like, I drop boas, the whole group, gone, pick up carpets as a replacement.
Yeah, but they're like your first love.
I know, they're still here.
The first love that you just can't quite get rid of.
Yeah, like I said,
keeps coming back.
Like an abused wife.
For sure.
I know he'll change.
I know he'll change.
He loves me. He told me. Fucking boas.
I am terrified of boas because of Arena. They are beautiful species, and I love watching you breed boas. And I think you're a better person than me to breed boas. I don't know. I try to have really clean standards. I try to have good quarantine, but I know I'm not anywhere near the level of what you're doing, even though I realize that I should be. And so I don't have myself regimented enough that I trust myself to bring in even a clean boa. I just don't have the trust in myself and my current setup to even allow that in my headspace, because if you make a mistake, everybody's dead.
Mm-hmm. Same, but I guess what I want to drive home is the same for ball pythons. We just don't think about it that way because so far it hasn't happened to you that everything has died magically in a period of a couple weeks. But it can happen. So we have to treat all snakes like boas.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
I know.
I'm getting there.
You're doing it. You're getting there. It's hard to make the mental leap to be paranoid at all times. And you're like, well,
right.
This isn't that fun. My hobby
It's
sucks.
exhausting.
My hobby sucks. I have to second guess every animal all the time. But we've seen bad things happen.
Yeah, bad things happened this week. Do we want to talk about that?
There was a corn snake on a corn snake forum that was clearly dying of crypto. If an animal is skinny, extraordinarily skinny, dehydrated, and it has a normally large mass in its midsection, that is the end stage of a cryptosporidium infection. It's dying. The amount of people in the comments who are like, you should feed it more. Oh my God, why aren't you feeding him enough? The whole community needs to stop, take a break, open a book, think about the fact that they have a corn snake already and they have no idea what crypto is. There was 40 comments like that. Why didn't you feed it enough? There was maybe 3 that were like, hey, you got crypto. Confirm with PCR, take it to your vet and have them humanely euthanized. Not enough reason in that comment section. Colubrid people think they got off easy because they didn't have certain viruses as common, but you have all the same crap, it's just different names. So we all need to be aware of that and move forward accordingly. It's not a quick, convenient pet that costs $50. It's a pet that deserves the same care and treatment as your $2,000 snake or your $5,000 snake. Just as deadly, just as non-treatable,
So
even more contagious.
Crypto all colubrids, or because I know that that's a king snake thing, but do corns carry it as prevalently as kings? Do you test every corn snake that you have coming in for crypto?
I don't test everyone. I test some from every batch. So if I buy 8 from someone, I'll test 2 or
okay,
whatever.
because you test every boa you get and you test every ball python you get. my question is, you don't do that with corn snakes.
I probably should. Let me be honest. If the snake is more than $500, I would every time. If the snake is from a new person, every time. If the snake is if there's like 8 coming from the same person and I test 2, given how contagious it is.
Super contagious, and does it show signs right away always, or
no? Sometimes it takes like 3 years, and they die as an adult. Like you can go buy a Petco crypto corn snake right now, and it could live for a couple of years, no symptoms, die as an adult, but it could be detectable that whole time.
Okay, that makes sense. Interesting.
But they do shed oocysts, so the infectious agent that is like very persistent in the environment, not like all the time. There's sort of a sporadic shed as the parasite takes over their stomach lining. So you would have to test. So like testing on intake doesn't necessarily fully capture the situation.
Right. So like with my king snakes, I'm putting them down for the winter to brumate, and you told me to test their first poop when they come up.
I don't know if I said that verbatim, but that would be a good idea.
Okay. I thought you said it verbatim.
I don't know, like...
That's that one that comes back up, I think is actually what you said.
Sure. Just whenever you get some poop and you have a chance. That's the problem. Is like there's so much latency and so much time where they're not shedding that it makes less sense to test everyone on intake than to test the colony... Test a lot of them on intake, but test the colony regularly to make sure we're not popping a positive. Oh, okay. Chris has said that to me for about other things. Chris is my husband, by the way, to the people at home. He's like, why don't you just test the shit out of everything? Like 1 week, the next week, the next week. I'm like, that's not how this works at all. We have variable shedding rates, variable like degrees of infectivity, the possibility of a virus or a parasite hiding in a tissue. There's some rumors on the street of Arena hiding fully from PCR for 2 years in a baby and not revealing itself later, so it might have been hiding in the CNS. That's a terrible rumor. It means it's very hard to have a functioning boa collection. The same might be true for certain variants of Nido in certain animals at certain times. How will we know? So the uncertainty obviously like sours the hobby.
It makes you very bitter.
But the uncertainty doesn't dissuade me from testing. It makes me test more, but like have more realistic expectations about each test or each animal, frankly. So that's why isolation is important. And I know you only have a little bit of kings, but diversification is important. So if you're a farm and you are, I don't even know, 18... When was the Irish potato famine? 1890 or something? Let's say it's 1879. Right. And you're like, should I plant wheat, corn? There's no corn in Ireland that grows. Wheat, potatoes, and rye. No, I'll just plant all potatoes. I'm going to have a monocrop of potatoes. And there shouldn't be any terrible infectious agent that comes in and wipes them all out. Yikes. Just kidding. That's why I don't have just one species also. If something got into the ball pythons and wrecked the whole crew, I still have 2 classes of animals that I can fall back on. Financially and motivationally, whatever. Same way with the boas. If the boas go south as a group, and you can't sell babies and you're sitting on stock and testing or whatever, you still have fully isolated, like separate extra collections that you can work with and sell or whatever. That's just me though. It does make you a very stretched thin person because you can't invest as much as you want in each class. Right.
Like I don't consider my kings an investment. I consider them like a
side project.
Just a fun distraction because I like to have a king on hand if I need to cull babies so I can feed those babies to the king. And so it's just like, you have to be here anyway, so I might as well dabble just a tiny bit in that.
I don't know what anyone should do. It does make it harder to do anything, but in general, diversification is important. Just don't sort of mix your... Don't cross your streams. Don't cross your streams, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. So if in your new facility you could have a room that's just for high-end hognoses, and you're going to crypto test them when they come in, and that's going to be your other sort of high-end project, and then a ball python, you'll have diversified two classes of animals that wouldn't necessarily be exposed to the same pathogen if there was a pathogen like breakthrough event, because they would be in two separate rooms, two separate, biologies. Just think about it, or don't think about it. All right, so here's my new corner, everybody. Instead of having a stick in my crawl, it's a crook in my crawl. It's a whole crook in my crawl. So this is just what grinds my gears, the corner. And usually this is just like petty bitching, but this one is like very specific. It's something that happened this week. There's actually like two parts, but one of them is I saw another large-scale ball python breeder picking up a boa. No mention of arena testing. It looks like it's in the same ARS rack as their balls. Do not fucking do that. If you don't want to take any advice from me ever, under any circumstance, do not buy a boa from the US, Canadian friends. Ship it up there where you don't have a convenient way to test for arena, and just put it in your rack with your ball pythons. Do not do that under any circumstance. Why would you do that? Why would you post it publicly? All your ball pythons are tainted to me. Why would I want to buy them ever? Crook in my crawl. What's grinding my gears this week? And this has happened multiple times where people are like, I bought a boa. I'm getting into boas. It's fun. Going to be fun. Put them in the freedom breeder right next to their ball pythons.
I miss living in the Matrix and not knowing that was
Look at
totally
these cool
awful.
morphs. IMG is so black. I love it. First, I want to fight you because of the disease risk. And then second, like, you can already tell they're looking at the animal like it's a ball python instead of looking at it like it's a boa in terms of like biology and how long they need to wait to breed it and how they're setting up their collection or what lines they pick. So this is like the boa bougie part of what's happening.
It's actually, I see it as a fairly common that ball python breeders have one or two
they pick them up because it's
very
fun
high
looking.
end boas that they want to breed in a $30,000 clutches.
Listen, though, this is the other part of my crook and my crawl, is the price tag is not relevant to the disease status.
No, at all.
It's not a fucking investment if it's got Nido or Arena in it. So I saw a video this week where someone was like, this snake costs $20,000. I won't say his name, but you could probably figure it out based on the timestamp. And he's like, I'm going to put it in my collection because I don't feel like quarantining it with my other quarantine animals. I'm going to quarantine it with my collection because he's worth $20,000. He better not be sick. That is not how that works. The disease doesn't care how much a snake costs. Your hope.
I saw that and was like dying inside.
Your hope that he is clean, it has everything to do with his financial cost to you. Not the actual facts on the ground of whether or not he's a clean snake.
Bag $6,000 worth of animals I have culled this year with Nido. One of them was worth $2,500.
Isn't that crazy, boys and girls? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Still had Nido.
The Nido doesn't care.
Nido doesn't care.
No. And this was also a proven breeder male who's been exposed to at least 3 females because that's how many that male had sired. So what? Hard what from me on that one? Like, that grinds my gears.
Yeah, it was an adult breeder male, which is the most dangerous, highly exposed ball python to bring into your collection anyway. Like,
it's just killing me. And
when
obviously
people don't know where to start, I say start
fine.
and test all your breeder males. Like, if you don't know where to start and you have 100 snakes, test your 10 males. Start there.
Right. Please do that today or yesterday. If you don't know how, message me. I will answer that message for sure. Like, I want to know my status, so I want to start somewhere instead of guessing. Do it. Every ball python person, every boa person, every carpet person, you need to start somewhere because it's already a problem and it's already a thing. And none of your collection is worth shit until your status is known. I don't care how nice you think your collection is, how high end, it's not worth nothing.
How much money you spent.
Yeah, if you spend $100K, it's worth 0 until you know if they're clean or not. Sorry. That was crook in my craw corner. Maybe we'll have that corner again. Because now I'm fired up.
That was good.
What happened in your collection this week, Jana?
I picked up a snake. And I haven't tested it yet.
What snake did you pick up?
I picked up a snake from you.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I saw the team. I forgot. Yeah. How'd that go?
It's going, I mean, she's in a quarantine all by herself, and Poor thing needs a little test that I forgot to do on Monday, which I'm just now remembering I forgot to do on Monday. So I need to test her just for.
Are you going to FedEx this time or USPS?
I think I'll try FedExing and seeing.
Like, you can save the money
faster
for USPS or whatever, but it's obviously 2 days because it doesn't get there early enough on the next day. It's
How much do you pay FedEx?
$56. That's for like
it's only 20. It's 26 with USPS.
Yeah, it's still like my internal tests. Like I'm retesting for me with no external ones linked in.
Right.
I'll USPS. But if I want to tell a seller the next day what his animal status is, I'll just do
or if
that.
it's a really high purchase and you're sweating it. So yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
And I'm at FedEx anyway picking up the snake, so I can just print the label out at home using the Ship Your Reptiles discount. Otherwise it'd be $80. And just swab in the car, put it into the container in the FedEx parking lot, and then don't have to drive to the post office too.
Right, right. Yeah, I may do that. Yeah, because now I have to wait till next week to send it out because I missed the boat on that. And I have a couple that I want to retest that I'll send with hers.
Good job.
But yeah,
testing.
I got a GHI Extreme Gene, possibly. What are we calling her? Her POS gene.
I don't know. Snake stuff.
Snake stuff.
I don't even want to say it out loud because that's just going to curse it.
Oh, it'll be like she's a pastel GHI Extreme
Plus.
Gene,
we'll just say plus
het clown, and she's beautiful. And I am going to put her in my Kiki project.
Good job. My collection update was that I moved some of the animals that were in quarantine into their respective rooms. The Mojave that was basically about to burst with follicles, I didn't even ultrasound her. I did just give her the clown. If there's a problem, then I'll solve it. That's exciting. I didn't think you were going to do it. I thought you were going to give her sacrificial male. I wanted to, but I don't even have to ultrasound her. She's probably 17 or something, just looking at her.
Wow, that's exciting.
If she's not using stored sperm, she's like about to use stored sperm from 10 years ago or something like that. That was my assumption. Yeah. And then I moved that crazy boa that I mentioned into the snake shack.
The big huge one?
Yeah, that was a Steve Irwin-like adventure. I'm talking dodging strikes, and the boa probably weighs 20 pounds, so she's heavy to begin with. And then I had to lift her up to like the top of a boa file stack. So I ended up having to
so you gave her a vivarium because she was in a...
Yeah, she was in quarantine for,
big Tupperware thing.
5-6 months or something. Has a negative. Her name is Nearly Headless Nancy because she has like a scar around her neck, like she almost degloved herself, like pushing her head through something from wherever she was. And for the people at home, she's a 15-year-old Craigslist boa that was like, this thing is so old and not dead. I wonder how much arena it has in it. Bought it, tested it. It's obviously negative. So I'm like, well, proves nothing about the long-term valuability of certain variants in boas. But now I have her. I actually think she's a kind of raptor. Do you know what a raptor is in boas?
I don't, but if you would educate me, I'd love to learn.
Okay, a raptor. The heterozygote looks like a very mild CBLT, circleback ladder tail, where the saddles are connected a little bit by like a little strip, and the tail saddles are connected by a little strip. So that can be polygenic, that pattern type, but it can also be monogenic. A lot of the boa patterns are based around like connectivity of saddles. So Key West and ROT and Parsons, which are the same thing, Nexus, Inca, Aztec have the same sort of feature. Motley. So I am actually running on the theory that almost all of the ones that we think are polygenic are actually monogenic. But one of those types is raptor. So they're a little bit connected. They have sides that are connected, and the sides are like overly connected and like blown out. If you Google it, the heterozygote, not that exciting. Homozygote. The tail gets really exciting because it like explodes out the little red parts. Look much more dramatic.
But so do you have a raptor male?
No. I should have one because then I could prove her, but I don't. I don't have time to quarantine and whatever. But raptor and Key West, they aren't allelic. I do have a Key West male, so to confirm that she is not a Key West, which is a similar look. I will probably breed her to the Key West. Double check.
Is he the dad of all your colorful babies?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that'll be pretty. Is she on your IG?
No, she's uglier than sin.
Okay. Maybe you could slide a picture into my DMs later so I could see what she looks
I didn't have a picture of her.
Oh, she's that ugly.
She used to be kind of nice, but because I've been like ignoring her on purpose because she's in quarantine and trying to slim her down, like I haven't been feeding her very often, maybe like every 6 weeks or so. She was too fat when I got her. She was eating like a guinea pig every 2 weeks. I'm like, that is excessive. So go way back, trying to like drop a couple pounds off of her fat ass to like potentially even get her to like maybe be ready to breed. Because a really fat female, when they breed, they don't do good. The moral of the story is I moved her and it was a real sort of shit show. So I have to figure out like a new setup for her where she's not so high up. Because when someone hates you from above, it's much different than when they hate you from like a safer level. It's like Anakin.
She can get you from where she is.
Sometimes Obi-Wan has the high ground and you can't do anything about it. So I can see that the snake has the high ground and I'm fucked. So that was my collection update.
It's gonna take your face off.
She wants to rearrange it deeply. I'm hoping by like being in that cage, maybe she'll be happier again with people because she'll see me work in the room or walking by and not be completely ignored all the time, which is what she was when she was in the Tupperware. It's hard. It's hard with boas because like a long time ago, I used to be like, I'm going to interact with my boa. And you take out a couple adults and you play with them. I have to do a full clothing change every time I do something with an adult. Because they invariably touch your clothes. I'm not going to cross-contaminate with my clothes. And since they're much bigger, I can't like restrict them to just my hands. So my boas definitely get short shrift in terms of like interaction, specifically because of arenavirus spread protocols, which is sad because like boas are actually fun to hold on to. You can like, they sort of hug back and you can put them over your shoulders and it's nice. I don't really do that though anymore. People ask me all the time, how much do you interact with your boas? I'm like, almost none. It's already like a decontamination routine to clean their cage and change their water. I do glove changes every time. I don't know how many sea turtles I've choked to death on just gloves thrown away. Those sea turtles are fucked. It's crazy. Fucked.
Because of boas.
Yeah, because of boas. Thanks a lot, boas. Now, somehow we're going to have to synthesize our thoughts about our year of production, 2021. Jana, you have one clutch left?
I have one clutch left. It is on day 50 today.
What was the pairing on that one?
That is the Coral Glow Pied, who I think has some kind of... I think he's got messed up sperm, so he throws bad eggs and bad odds and kinked up babies. And then the mom is Mojave Het Pied, who may or may not have monsoon markers. So it'll be really interesting to see the babies if they come out not all kinked up. We'll see. The other clutch that just hatched from my other Mojave Het Pied and the Coral Glow, 4 died at like day 40, died in the egg. And then I wanted to know if they were viable, so I cut at day 50, which I should not have done. But 1 died the next day, so I just have 1 left.
Was it the Mojo or the normal?
The normal died. And when I pulled it out, it had the really skinny head.
Oh, yeah. I know
the
that
really
one.
Skinny face. So it had to have some kind of internal issues. I don't think it would have made it anyway, or I would have been one I called because it just didn't look right. And some of his other babies have looked that way. But the Mojave looks fine.
We've never talked about this, but it's possible he actually has a null allele somewhere.
Yeah, you mentioned that I should look into the alleles, but I didn't.
So a null allele is like,
so.
Yeah, you don't have to go into the weeds too bad, but it's an allele that makes the animal look like a homozygote, but the allele they have, the other one, is completely broken. It doesn't work at all, completely non-functional. Like it doesn't code for the protein at all. There's like a stop codon really early. So the other allele they have, whatever that is, then gets to express as a homozygote, not like as a mix between the two alleles. So if you have a cinnamon and it has cinnamon on one side and a null allele, it'll look like a super cinnamon.
Okay.
But cinnamon probably would have been a bad comparison because cinnamons like to do parthenogenesis anyway, just as a default. There's something about them. They either are doing that or they're having null allele issues, but I think it's actually parthenogenesis.
Like he has produced no male offspring, and so even the ones that I've had to cull because they were kinked, he's produced no bananas, even though he's a banana or coral glow, and none of his spring have been male that have survived.
Right. Well, I think that's because, and we've talked about this, that males are just weaker. So in boa litters with high slugs, the slugs are invariably males, and so the sex ratio will be skewed towards females. So all of your weaker babies that, if he's doing something like sitting on the heat and cooking his sperm like a dummy, he's cooking his male sperm. So that's why I'm less thinking that it's like a null allele issue and more just he's not taking care of his sperm or his sperm are not high quality. Because narrow heads and like dying mid incubator is like a sign to me of poor sperm quality from heat.
Yeah, he does. He never gets off the heat. He actually just looks like a gravid female in the back on the heat in the coil at all times.
Don't do that, snakes. PSA.
And I actually have the rack that he is in specifically turned down because he hangs out on the heat too much. So their rack is at like 87, and I typically run mine at like 89, 90.
So how many females did you pair?
I paired 24 females.
Were those all proven breeder adults or?
So everything that I paired was 2018 or older.
Okay, so how many of the 24 laid any eggs at all, or slugs?
14.
Oh, that sucks. Whoa, sorry. It
really sucks. That's bad.
Wow.
It's not as bad as I thought it went. It was my first season. And
listen, my first season was like 95% or something. So I don't know what happened.
The Coral Glow Pied had 10 of those girls.
All right. So yeah, they might not have gone because they knew their swimmers weren't good and they bailed on producing. So that would have done it.
And four of those girls, now that I have an ultrasound, 4 of those girls are at 20 to 25 right now.
So they were rerunning their second string instead of waiting the full 7 months? Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, then he was probably just a waste.
So they have all gotten new males. I'm no longer using that male. And those 4 look like they're going to go.
Okay, good job.
And then I have 1 gravid, so that's 5. So that's like 19 out of 24, which makes it sound like not as bad of a number.
But they're not going to lay this year.
No, those will be counted in next season.
Okay. You're doing great. Did you calculate number of slugs? I didn't really. I just have an assessment. What's your slug count for the year?
I had 3 slugs the whole year, which was only 4%.
How many died in incubation?
Died in incubation, I think I had 8, which was 10%. I had to cull 8 babies, which was also 10%. So 20% were lost between laying and
It's really not
life.
that great, but that's okay. Life's hard.
That's terrible.
It's probably that male.
It's that male. Like I said, he bred almost half the females, so it killed my numbers. But, it was my first season. I learned a lot. I'm not going to let it drag me down. So, yep, those are the numbers, and they suck. Season 2, I'm ready, and I'm excited about.
How do you feel about parthenogenesis nowadays?
So
the first time we talked about it, you were like, no one's ever talked about this. Do you feel like no one's ever talked about it now? Knowing what it is now and hearing about it now?
So I had one of my clutches also being bred by that male, go parthenogenesis. And I had heard of it, but hadn't been hearing it being talked about. And you are the person who told me, oh, go listen to this podcast, which I did. And there was some YouTube videos on it that I also watched. I think it's happening a lot more. And I think people are talking about it a lot more than they used to. But I think that it's much more prevalent than even we realize, even though we're talking about it more, if that makes sense. So it is being talked about. I was wrong about that. People are starting to recognize it and call it what it is. But I think it's happening much more often than is even being talked about.
Yeah, I think that your problem is you're coming through it from the ball python lens, where everything is an investment, buy, invest. It's all going to be great. And so yes, they mention parthenogenesis in ball python Facebook communities, but if you had been listening to NPR 3 years ago, you would have listened to Warren Booth 3 years ago or whatever.
Right.
it's not
where
your
he
fault.
Says all that.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, it's just so common. I don't want sheds. Please stop sending them to me because it happens all the time. It's basically something anybody listening to this who has a boa, colubrid, bird, they're all capable of parthenogenesis, and it's quite common. It's not 100%. In my terms of service for my store policy, if it doesn't turn out to be het, I'm going to pay you back. It's specifically because of parthenogenesis, not because I don't know how to pair correctly or check for retained sperm or whatever. It's because at any time a female could look at her mate and be like, nah, I'm just gonna double up.
I got it. I got it.
Double up on my own self. And if it's something stupid, like it looks like a normal and you think it's het clown or het tristripe, but she just doubled up 2 of her normal genes, you would never know because the rest of the litter or clutch might look like dad sired the rest of it because you can have mixed partho clutches or litters. So
mine was mixed, I believe. I think 1 of the 7 egg came out black pastel, single gene, and then everything else looked like double genes that mom had. And so I don't believe that baby, it's never done poorly. All the research that I did, the parthogenic babies do poorly. I culled the whole rest of the clutch because super black pastel, super champagne is non-viable with life. So they were all culled and probably wouldn't lasted more than a week if I hadn't culled. Something that I learned by listening to the NPR with Dr. Warren Booth, I guess he's doing all his parthenogenesis research. That's like his hobby. That's not something he's doing as his like day job. I was worried that it was something that we have done like inbreeding or when we, keep pairing like sons to mothers and other things. I worried that it was something that we as a community have done to ball pythons. And he assured everyone listening to his podcast that that's not what's happened. He believes it to be an inherited gene and not a captive syndrome. It's something that happens in the wild as like a protection of the species. The example that he gave is like if a snake washes up on the shore of some island and they're the only snake there, their option to breed is not there, but they can do parthenogenesis and make other females. And so if a male does happen to wash up on shore, hopefully there will still be a female alive to breed to continue the species is what he believes is why it happens. But it does happen in the wild. And like you said, it happens in fish and poultry and
right. It's very basal to that reptiles. Group. So it's a feature or flaw, depending on how you look at it, that just has been conserved. It's good enough of the time that it's been conserved throughout all these different lineages. It's not perfect because, like you said, the product of parthenogenesis, that animal is not that good at living because it's not very heterozygous for other stuff, the stuff that's important, like the stuff for good immune systems and whatever else. And those ones are highly likely to also have lots of parthenogenic clutches too. And they usually have problems producing themselves. So it's just like a last-ditch effort on the island to see if we can make a couple more to keep the stuff afloat. But a female that's parthenogenic, I wouldn't say like don't keep any of her babies that are of sexual production, but maybe I wouldn't, honestly, because they will have the same problem their mom has, where they will want to reproduce parthenogenically often.
So that's the reason that when we had first talked about it, that was the intelligent conclusion that we had come to when I decided to place that baby, even though we think she's a black pewter ghost, in a pet only home, is because there are so many unanswered questions about parthenogenesis and about viability. And if her mom parthos again this year, then she's probably going to go to a pet home herself. But that is one of the main reasons why I didn't look at that baby, even though she's phenomenally beautiful. And if she is a black pewter ghost, would love to have a female black pewter ghost in my collection. I don't know how much I trust the viability of that baby, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think it's possible. So if mom is het for ghost, is it possible that she only produced a single gene black pastel and then doubled her ghost?
No.
Like, is that something that happens, or
no.
It's either none or both?
Yeah, of every gene.
Okay.
She had to be a double or none of all three of those.
So she had to have been produced sexually.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
She's a single gene black pastel.
So she has a lifetime of viability and breeding ahead of her. But how often will she choose to partho? We don't know, because we don't know if she got the partho tendencies passed to her from her mom or not.
Correct. Does she have that gene? Is she going to partheno, and any babies she have, are they going to, is that something that I want in my collection in my breeding colonies.
I probably would have kept her particularly because you didn't know yet if she had gotten the partheno tendency yet. You know, the
That's
mom
fair.
did, so I would probably have already gotten rid of the mom, kept the daughter to stay in the project of like ghost black pastel. But it's okay.
Lessons learned. So how many did you breed in ball pythons?
I bred 17, but 3 of them were 18 months old, so I had no expectation that they would go, and they did not. And I don't do that because I think 18-month-olds should breed or whatever. I don't care. I just test pair things around adult-ish size, 1,200 to 1,500, and if they look like they're interested in going, that's fine with me. I'm not here to argue with what they want. But none of them chose to go, nor did I have an ultrasound to like double check. So that gets us down to 14 that were mature. And of those, 3 didn't go at all. The Mystic, I have no idea why she didn't go. She was the right weight. She was 3. She ate heavily. I didn't have an ultrasound again, so I don't know what her status was, but she just chose not to go. She was a virgin, so I don't know what that means. And then the black pastel was paired to Peter Dinklage and his other girlfriend. Peter Dinklage is my like dinker who looks weird. He's on my Instagram if people want to look at him. The other girl, he was paired to Slugged Out completely. So he could not have the best swimmers because the black pastel was up to 25 or 6 millimeters when she reabsorbed. So she was trying to go, but then chose not to at the last minute. I don't want to guess, but I guess anyway that means that she didn't like the sperm that she had. I didn't count the slugs, but there were 3 clutches that were basically half slugs. I got 3 viable eggs and 4 slugs or whatever. And those were all in the same rack that I think got overheated pretty early in the year. And they were female heavy clutches.
Okay.
But at total, I only produced 58 baby ball pythons. How many did you produce? Did you do a total number of babies?
Of alive babies,
Yeah.
I produced 62. And then I have the potential to produce, I think there's 5 good eggs in the incubator right now.
All right. I think that I had a lot, and I look at my rack, and I'm like, I have a lot, and I'm like, I didn't really have a lot. Actually, like total number of beings produced.
Yeah.
Like I produced almost that many, not quite, but like close with 2 bow litters, 2 females.
Really?
Yeah, because they had like
That's crazy.
24 and whatever, 20. So it gets pretty close without any sort of effort.
Where I feel like ball pythons can range pretty heavily.
Right. And like the base ball python price for a normal ball python is way lower than the base boa price. So I can sell a normal boa for like $150 or something. Can't sell a normal python for $5. You need to really overly like your pairings in ball pythons because those 3 babies is all you're just going to get. So you better like what comes out the other side or it
Right.
be good for your collection and sellable. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of everybody's time, including their time.
And you had one that completely slugged out.
Yeah, I said that. Bred to the dinker.
Oh, right. Okay.
So she had 11 slugs, which is
Oh my
insane.
gosh. I would cry.
I did not cry. It's fine. Very conservative about Peter Dinklage's ability to be anything at all at this point. And I was
Not like genetics wise. If a female laid 11 eggs, my biggest is 8. And so 11 eggs, but then they're all slugs. I thought I'd be crushed by that for just a minute.
okay.
Just a little minute.
All right, that's fine. I'm the bitter one here, so it's fine.
I've already been crushed.
Yeah, I've been pre-crushed and then like resuscitated with water, and now I just get micro crushed every day, and it's fine. We can move on to like weird things we noticed in the balls. I worry every day that my calico is not a calico and it's something else. She is something else besides black pastel, but the babies that are calico, they're not like shiningly calico looking.
I agree. I don't see the calico in the babies, and I don't see the calico in the mom. But she's definitely not just black pastel. I have seen other black pastel calicos that look like she looks. It's a hard gene to pick out calico with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard in GHI too. Like if you go look at the GHI calicos, they just tend to be fuzzier and sort of spaced out. But that happens for a lot of reasons in GHI. It'll sort of space out the bands and like clean them up inside and maybe put some little orange. But those oranges will never turn white because GHI is too strong.
Right.
Yes, I have very strange collection of het clown babies that are all cool looking. I'm not sure what they are though. the ones that I have labeled as mom gene could be anything. And since extreme gene is in there, it's lightening up a bunch of them. So that's not helping either. To be like, oh, it's clearly whatever. Maybe it is like a chocolate or something like that. Think about that in the dark heart of the night. But I'm going to keep a son, read it back to the mom, standard. And even though I'm risking super blacks, I don't know what else to do. I'll breed her to something that hopefully I see calico better that's not GHI. But
I was just going to say, what male is she getting?
The tri-stripe. I would not risk her with a pastel, which would probably be the most showing of calico. Or OD. I don't even have OD to breed to her.
You have your pastel banana clown.
He's off the roster.
Oh,
He's on restriction.
Because he didn't get any of the clutches.
He didn't get any of the clutches. He also is off food right now because a rat bit him on the nose, and now he's mad at rats. He doesn't want to eat mice. He doesn't want to eat ASFs. His nose is healed, but he's still mad at rats because they hurt his feelings.
I thought you did fresh kill most of the time.
Not recently. I got lazy.
Oh, okay.
I got lazy. So I've been doing live, and the ones that are like a little bit more sensitive, they're little babies about it. Ball python problems. The banana will stay. It's like a backup, but I probably will back up the GHI clown with one of the bigger het clowns that's born this year. Like if he needs a break next, like 6 months from now, and I back him up with the spot nose yellow belly. Yes, the babies are not 100%, but I can see the difference. Unless magically a breedable male clown appears.
Nido free.
A good set of genes, no pastel. Hilarious.
Well, I mean, with pastel, I just meant that the banana clown, banana and pastel are both very reactive to
calico. He was paired to her a couple times this year.
Oh, but he didn't take the clutch. So, yeah, okay.
It's fine. It's all fine. I just can't sell anything ever, apparently.
I've got to keep it all. Snake quarter, people. Although she did sell me a snake.
Because the GHI scoops so many clutches, I literally have 25 very viable, nice het clown females of different combos, and 15 of them have GHI in them. It's fine.
Super excited.
Yeah, the extreme gene is actually like very interesting to me now because it looks actually much better than I thought it was going to look. It
looks so good.
Yeah.
Especially with GHI.
And so especially in like the lesser
pretty.
combos, they're like surprisingly clean. If you look at RCR's extreme lesser and it not extreme lesser, that's like het DG or something, and he compares them, he's like, look at this. And like the adult lesser extreme is very nice compared to a regular lesser, obviously. So I don't know if I'm hoping, you know how lesser's clowns look like dog shit, right? We can all agree.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm sad that my G-stripe male has lesser. I'll probably have to keep a few het kiki females with lesser, which isn't my favorite.
No, not the favorite. But spot nose lesser clowns do look much better. Spot nose helps. So I'm hoping like if we could get spot nose super extreme lesser combos or whatever clowns, they will not look like dog shit. But both in like not fading and then like maintaining color and contrast. So the spot nose will keep the contrast and the extreme will force the fade not to happen as bad as an adult. That's my dream. It could be wrong. And then the GHI will add color and darkness back to it. Maybe a little blackhead in there. We don't know. So I unexpectedly chose to keep at least 2 of those extreme GHI lesser pin het clown females.
Those are so pretty. They're so nice. They're so extra. Like they just, wow. They're like literally glowing in their rack when I looked at them.
It's very strange. It's okay to sell some GHI het clowns because I do need 20, but I don't really need 20. What I need are like obviously visuals or some other gene of some kind. Hopefully you like what you got. Maybe breed it to a DG. See what happens.
No. She's going to go to a Kiki.
I know, but your enhancer's in all your Kiki shit anyway, so it's gonna...
That's fair,
It's the same difference. It's all the same difference at this point.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I don't know if my Kiki, when I get a Kiki male, hopefully in a year, the unicorn would be Kiki het enhancer or het DG, but I'm not going to hold my breath for that combination to get made available.
If it is made, you ain't buying it. You haven't, like, sucked enough D to get in line. You didn't go to the VIP meeting last
I
weekend.
did not go to the VIP.
Then you didn't suck enough
I
D
did not perform services to enter the line.
God, don't you know how this works?
And I don't know how deep mutation creation is into Kiki and Kiki Enhancer. I know that he has to be in the project at least a little because I just got a Enhancer head clown 66 G stripe. So he's got to be moving that direction, but I don't think he's going to get there any faster than me, if that makes sense.
Right.
I don't think I'm going to be able to buy a male from him next year, a visual.
No.
Visual. So
he might not even hit a visual, like even if he's close. That's the other thing. There might only be 5 produced per year for the next couple of years.
Yeah. Did you see the Kiki, the Enchi Kiki that was posted on Instagram?
No.
Did I send that to you?
Nope. Should send it to me. I'll check it out.
I should have. It was.
I like Kiki, obviously, as a project. My thing that concerns me is everyone who's in the project has bought something from Garrick Meyer somewhere along the line. So everyone has cinnamon in lesser half of the time in their parts.
This one didn't. It was Enchi Kiki.
Oh, okay, but like half of the people who have any part of it have cinnamon lesser in part of it, it looks like to me.
It's really hard to get into any genetic stripe project without cinnamon.
Right.
It's so heavily embedded in the project.
Don't you think that's Garrick's fault or blessing or whatever you want to interpret it? Just he has produced so many and kept producing them and didn't give up. And he kept cinnamon in his lines because he just likes it and it's fine.
Yeah, my multi-gene male has cinnamon and lesser to my detriment.
Right, but every time I see a G-stripe,
I wish it was.
Half the time it has cinnamon in it anyway, just in general. It very rarely has black pastel in it. And it does sometimes have other stuff in it. It's just, I think he's very prolific, and so his progeny is
what's out there.
It has like changed the distribution of genes within that project to such an extent that it's hard to sort of get away, which if you can get away faster, please do.
You know, but I'm most likely going to have to get my Kiki from him.
I know. Well, just don't.
Hopefully it doesn't have those genes.
Yeah, I'm not saying not to do it from him, but it's just interesting as an outsider of the project who's not really that into it. Every time I look into it, all I see is like a sea of cinnamon and lesser. As far as the eye can see. What are your holdbacks? What's in your rack out of all those babies?
Not much.
Dang it.
I have a pastel, possibly fire calico in my holdback rack. She came out of a little boob egg, had to assist feed her. Now she eats like a house and is bigger than some of her siblings.
They do like overcompensate the little.
Definitely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, she will eat anything. So she kind of just grew on me, so I'm keeping her and never have too much calico. And then I have the brother of one that I should have kept from my G-stripe male. He's the banana Lester GHI cinnamon yellow belly het genetic stripe that I have in my holdback rack. Just he's cool. I don't know.
What does he have that father doesn't have?
He has yellow belly.
Okay.
But he's also not genetic stripe visual. He's just het. So I haven't decided if I'm keeping him to throw into my highway project just because he has so many genes that it might be interesting to see. Highway, I don't feel like they've plugged in a lot of genes yet. It might be interesting to see what would come out if I threw him to a highway female. He's obviously not old enough yet, but I do have him for sale. If he sold, it would be okay. But if he doesn't sell, it'll also be okay. One of my clutches was Enchi Orange Ghost to that Powerhouse G-stripe male. So they're all double het. And one of the females is normal double het. And then I have one female that's GHI cinnamon Enchi. I think Lesser's in there too. I don't know. I'd have to look at my notes. She's staying, and I think I might end up just keeping the double het G-stripe ghost because why not? Even though she doesn't have any other genes, but she also has the benefit of not having lesser, so that's good. And so then I'm also keeping a male from that clutch as well because I have my champagne black pastel that Parthenode that I think is het for ghosts that I'd like to prove out.
You're not just going to go buy a combo? G-stripe hypo is cheap. It's just like you could probably buy it for $500 a male. Maybe not with those genes, but
it's I mean, yeah, they're cheap and they would actually produce hets rather than, but he is Enchi GHI lesser double het. So I didn't have to buy him. He's there. I think I'll keep him and raise him up, and I can throw him to his sisters, and I can throw him to that one I want to prove out, or I can throw him to mom. I don't know. So those I'm keeping. I may later part with the male, but We'll see.
That's 5, 6 holdbacks.
That's 5. And then I have a visual pied female from my coral glow to my het pied. And she has a sister that's just het pied that's still in my rack. She won't eat. I've been assist feeding her, and she has no reason not to eat other than her dad has wimpy, crappy sperm. And I had to cull 3 of their siblings because they had really bad kinking. But she looks normal, but she won't eat anything. And I'm not assist feed, I have to force feed her. So most of my assist feeding, you just get the head down their throat and they do the rest. I have to physically force the whole rat
That's not good.
into her. So she might end up needing to be culled if she does not ever strike or show any desire to eat anything. She's in my rack. I want her to be a holdback, but if she continues to not thrive, then I don't want her as a breeder, if that makes sense. And if she doesn't ever eat on her own, that I'm not the kind of person that's going to feed that snake for the rest of its life.
Right. Usually they die anyway at like a year old or something.
Right.
Because there's something wrong with them.
So she's got 4 more chances to, and I mean, like, if she will take the head and try to eat it herself, that counts as like, okay, you get to stay for a little longer and we'll see. If she doesn't make any progress in the next month, then I will probably call her.
Yeah, sometimes they are dumb and there's something wrong with them. And
yeah. And I think that could be her case because of who her father is. Anyway, that's a bummer. So she was supposed to be holdback. I mean, my most exciting clutches were pretty lame this year, and you can't really keep back 70 million fireflies at nothing. So there are 2 that I have let go that I should not have that should be in my rack right now. But I have learned that lesson, and I won't make that mistake this year.
Right. People make fun of me about how many snakes I don't sell, but...
Well, you can always sell them in a year if you change your mind, but you don't get to ask for them back. So
yeah. Do not sell stuff until you at least know what the season totals look like.
Correct.
Like, I wouldn't have sold any GHI het clown females if he didn't scoop 2 additional clutches worth of females. So
right. So in the future, any clutches with the females will be held until the end of the season, and the males will go to shows and stuff, unless I'm looking for a male specifically, and then I'll make my determination then. So my G-stripe male only produced 1 female in his first clutch, and he was bred to a yellow belly. So she was GHI, lesser, cinnamon, yellow belly. Beautiful snake. Completely should have been in my rack. I had G-stripe, and I had someone, when I posted the clutch, offer to buy her, and they accepted my ridiculous price. So next time I know, like, oh, I haven't picked my holdbacks. And I thought that one of the other ones was a girl, and it turned out to be a boy. So mistakes were made. I've learned lessons.
Good job.
Now I know. What's in your rack? A lot.
Yeah, it's most of what I produced, to be honest. I like everything that I make most of the time. I'm not going to go through it because it would take forever, but it's an ungodly stack of het desert ghost females, mostly, and het clown females.
Those both sound like glorious things.
I mean, that's fine. Like, I'm not sad. The tears are not salty. And het desert ghost pied, because the mom was 100% het. So I have 2 of those females. The hard part for me right now is, like, do I keep, non-ideal, like, pinstripe extreme het clown just because I want to maybe work extreme and just have another het clown female to replace some of, like, the normal het clown older females I have? Or do I sell 5 to 10 of those, which I have obviously a lot of those in total, and buy, like, a couple of visual clowns, hypo clown combos, whatever? I think that's probably the correct answer, but I probably won't sell them until the spring because fall prices suck. They suck so bad.
It seems like the last week or 2, people are in that, oh crap, I better order before people quit shipping. You quit shipping, but I think people got the, oh crap, we're about to be cut off.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people did a lot of sales in the last 2 weeks as opposed to the last month or 6 weeks where they didn't do any. And then just right now, a bunch of people I'm in a group chat of local breeders on Instagram, and a lot of them have sold at least 2 or 3 snakes in the last week.
I've sold boas exclusively in the last 2 weeks. No ball pythons. What's going on, ball pythons?
You sold one to me.
We had already bought it before that.
That's fair. Okay.
You were dotted in.
So yeah, definitely wait till the spring. You can't ship them out anyway.
Well, I ship in January. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's just fair. Wait until the holiday rush normalizes
you just
a little
throw in
bit.
A heat pack?
Yeah, they're fine. Especially from here, where we're always 50 degrees. The only part of the country you have to be really careful of is like a snowstorm has stopped all trucks. So that's all you watch for. And Ship Your Reptiles is good about being like,
alerts.
It's a blackout week. Don't ship it all. And you're like, okay. You just have to be mindful of that part. But the temperature...
Isn't the Midwest, like the middle part of the country where all of our packages go if they're going to the East Coast, aren't they under snow?
Sure, but it doesn't... They're used to it, right? So it's only...
It doesn't shut them down like it does here.
No. We get a stiff breeze and all of a sudden the world's collapsing. Yeah, so it's not as dangerous as people make it out to believe. To me, it's more dangerous shipping in like that weird shoulder time where like my temperature needs a heat pack, but you're 80 degrees. So we slap enough phase 22s in there and hope we make it. So like I'd rather ship when it's cold on both sides than...
I agree.
Than hot on one side, cold on the other, or we're confused about like syncing it up so we can use a heat pack or not use a heat pack.
Yeah,
so that stresses me out. People are like, why is my snake cold? I'm like, well, because you're 72 and I'm 65. So I couldn't use a heat pack and he had no heat this whole time. He's fine. But their perception is that I've somehow like not done my job correctly, and I've absolutely done my job correctly. You just need to figure out how shipping works.
See, and when it's a gray area, I say it is my preference to not ship with heat. Do you have a preference? If it's a gray area, obviously if you're shipping from 60 to 70, it's not a heat pack situation. But if it's a gray area,
Yeah, you would want them to be cold before too hot. Their brains don't come back from being too hot. They can come back from being a little bit too cold. Just obviously don't ship them with food in them. All those snakes that Billy had that were half frozen, they're all alive and fine. If you had put them in a 100-degree box for 2 days, they would be gone.
Right.
Melted. And people underestimate ball pythons' capacity to tolerate low temperatures. 70 degrees, 60 degrees, 50 degrees. They can tolerate it for an amount of time that's not indefinite. And they come out just fine. I guess I'll move on to the other categories, unless you had a wrap up ball python.
No, I think that...
Because we kind of have to hurry up.
Yeah, it was the first season. I didn't do that great. I didn't keep necessarily what I should have kept. Learned a lot of lessons. So why don't you go into your other species?
All right. Maybe you'll learn something when you do king snakes. I don't know. Maybe not. I bred corn snakes for the first time this year. So I actually had corn snakes many times, like in the before time, but I never bred them. So this was the first time. So it was actually like really fun and exciting because they're way cuter than you'd imagine that something that little could have eyes and like a tongue. Just like, this is nonsense. This is a nonsense animal. It barely exists.
They are so cute. It's insane.
It's also like a flaw because I can get out of any little crack. So be careful. But they are insanely cute and they're relatively easy to take care of and get started. I dried out my first clutch for the honey and the double clutch for the Miami because I pointed a fan at their little boxes and it just was too much air pressure. There was just like a slightly amount of positive pressure pushing air in there and dried out the vermiculate. Killed those ones. So we had 28 born in the first two clutches. They have not sold very well. Let me tell you that. Poorly. Very poorly.
It'll be interesting to see if they sell at the show really well.
It will be interesting to see. If they don't, then I have to reevaluate which corn snakes get bred around here. Obviously, my normals het for a million things aren't exactly showstoppers that people want to have shipped. I had them as like an option to add to just any order for like, $50. You want to get a ball python for you, corn snake for your kid. Add it to any order. No one took that up. Bad idea, apparently. They were on like the local Facebook groups a couple times. No one has bought one. Not a single normal corn snake has been sold on a Facebook group around here. I don't know why. Probably because nobody cares about corn snakes that much. But I do. They're cute. I sold a couple of the nicer Miamis and the nicer Miami Tesseras and a Tessera from that pairing shipped. So like animals that are $150-ish have been sold and shipped. But it wasn't very many. It was maybe like 7. So 7 out of 28. So I still have a lot of corn snakes.
Wow.
So
I think they're going to do good at the shows.
Hopefully. Otherwise, this is literally a folly, and it was not a good idea at all. I'm glad I dried out the last clutches, because I would have been sitting on
100 corn snakes.
Yeah, and I know they're not that exciting, but the rumor is that at shows, just like with ball pythons, the things that sell to pets are like the flashy stuff. So like albino and pied and ball pythons, and in corns, amel and snows and stuff that looks bright.
My albinos did not sell at all at the show.
What the hell's wrong with people? Is it because of the price point? Do you think the show is so cheap that they can't even move at $300
I will
or whatever?
lower the price for this show, yes. I had them listed at $3, and I will put them down to like $2.
Do you think that's what it was?
$250.
Were they at the June show or just the October show?
Just the October show.
Maybe just because October was busy or something. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's depressing.
They weren't even looked at to buy.
Interesting.
They were not the first ones picked up. They were not the people asking to hold or meet or no. They sat in the display and did not move.
Hot take, everybody. Jana King, albinos, not moved, not held.
They will be at the
Hot
Christmas
take.
show.
Come get them at the Christmas show. Apparently they're going on a discount. Merry Christmas. Well, that doesn't make me feel any better about what's going on. So with corn snakes, that's supposed, so like the flashy ones is supposedly what sells. So I didn't produce anything flashy at all. They are normal tesseras, normals, het for 400 things, and Miamis and Miami tesseras, het for 2 things. And Miamis are my jam, but they're like super subtle. Like in person, you have to like look at them because they're small. If I take a picture and I blow it up, you're like, oh, that's a red and gray snake with black borders. Cool. But if you saw that in person, you're like, what is this? This is barely an animal. How is this a pet?
It's a worm.
Yeah, this isn't a pet. It's when they get much bigger, you're like, oh, wow. I like corn snakes a lot. I have a lot of females coming up to size. I have like a big season this year and a gigantic season next year. But if they don't sell, then I'm not going to breed a ton of them because it doesn't make sense to make animals that nobody wants. It's a little life that no one will take care of. So that's a little depressing.
I don't feel like corns are as big a deal in this region as ball pythons. When I see people recommending for snakes, I don't see them recommending corns, even though if you look at the national pet industry, corns and ball pythons are pretty neck and neck as far as first snake, best kid pet, reptiles. I think that they're pretty comparable, but I think locally a lot more people lean ball python for their kids.
It doesn't have to be that way. Like, it's very possible to have leaned the other way.
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't any corn snakes at the show. If there was, it had to have been like maybe one table and I missed
There's
it.
a couple of people that run a couple of corns, like as part of their like diverse collection. Cascade Corns is the only guy I know who runs a large amount of corns. He is vending in December too. There's a breeder up near where you live who breeds corns but never vends.
In Gig Harbor. Yep.
Yeah. And there's Mystic Exotic. She's in Spokane. She doesn't vend here, but she'll like send animals.
Okay, hot take. It's Spokane. You could tell she's not a native.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
You can edit that out.
No, I'm not.
Spokane.
Leaving it in there. It's fine. If there were more vendors pushing corn snakes more often, there would be more people demanding corn snakes. But that doesn't change the fact that this year I'm sitting on a lot of corn snakes going into the show that aren't particularly flashy. And my next year stuff isn't going to be particularly flashy either.
Well, flash if you're into the corn snakes, but someone walking by your table, if they're looking at my yellow and brown snakes and they walk next door to yours and yours are neon orange and neon red and all kinds of really pretty colors, they look much flashier when you stick them next to the normal ball python, and they're similar price points.
Yes, they are similar price points.
So I think that you're going to do really well with corns at the show, actually.
Okay. We will report back just for elucidation. We'll probably have a post-show recap where we're just what sold really poorly and who had BO and why. Whatever.
Everyone.
Oh, God. Yeah, I believe it.
Before the show even starts, you are going to be a hot, sweaty mess. No matter what you do. Just FYI.
I believe it. I already believe it. I know. I've just been there and I felt like I was a hot, sweaty mess.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's my corn snakes story. Is I actually have a lot of holdbacks, like 6 or 7. I have a lot of projects that I made out of just looking at the phenotype. Because phenotype is so variable in corn snakes, it's like a delight. You look at them, you're like, all right, I have 10 projects on this one animal. I'm losing my mind because the babies I can't sell.
So you had 4 females go this year for you?
2 females.
Did they double clutch? Because you said
they do got double clutch. So
you cooked 2 clutches?
I cooked the first clutch of I had 3 females go. I cooked the first clutch of a female and the second clutch of another female. And the third female did not double clutch. So I had 2 first clutches and that's it.
Okay.
Corn snakes don't always double clutch. That's the one you don't know. And usually it's if a female wants to, she'll keep doing it for her reproductive life. And you can sometimes encourage it or discourage it with the amount of food intake. But I didn't know which ones were going to, but now I know that like the Motley doesn't double clutch, but my Miami does. The honey did not double clutch. And then there was a male I tried to like encourage a double clutch with on the honey who turned out to be female. So she laid slugs. So I guess I unintentionally bred her. I put them together and they like looked at each other and I'm like, why aren't you breeding? You're old enough. That was a female, by the way.
I did that my first season.
I don't follow my own advice, which is like double check gender 3 times when you buy stuff. But this is like a good one because it turned out to be a female. But now she's sort of undersized for this year because she was fed like she was a male.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Do you visually sex based on their tail?
No, I probe
or do you
corn snakes
probe
pretty
corn
much.
Snakes? When
when they're adults, I probe them.
Okay.
You can definitely tell, and you can feel the peds through their tail.
Okay.
But I just double check with a probe. They're too wiggly. They're too running away.
Hot take, I have not sexed my 3 kings.
Oh no, please do that. They'll eat each other.
I am going to do
combat.
put them down. They're on room air now, so they're about to go down, and I plan to sex all 3 before I do that. But now they're hungry and angry.
Yeah. Do that after you feed them. When you bring them up and you start to like feed them heavy, check them then and just double check. You don't want to pick.
Okay.
I bet they are girls because you bought them as proven breeders.
The 2 girls are proven breeders, and the male, they said he was a male breeder. So I haven't sexed them. I need to. Oops.
All right. Yeah, I had bought a trio of corns in 2020 to breed this spring, and one of those females that also turned out to be a male. So I guess I paired a female and turned out to be a male, and then sold it like immediately and was like, bye. I kept from that trio just 1 female, which isn't even that particularly powerful, but she is an orchid maker. So she's het lavender and sun-kissed, and people really like orchids. They're really cool looking. And I have an orchid male, so I'm just trying to get him to size to like check her hets. And then all of her daughters that I kept, I'll keep as like hypothetical orchid makers when we get down the line. But it's another one of those things where I'm not sure how many animals to run because I don't know what the local scene wants to buy or how many they can withstand. And they don't. Corn snakes are cheaper. People don't necessarily want to pay $65 to ship something that's $100. So I should probably go higher end. But then, like I said, multiple homozygote corn snakes tend to not do as well. So is the high end that cool? And I don't like scaleless. They're ugly. We've established this fact. And palmetto are fine, but they're just okay. It feels too like restrictive of a.
If I did corns, would do palmetto and only palmetto.
Okay. What about would you call the ones with the bad eyes, or would you try to rehome them as pets?
So I need to do more research before. That is what I'm drawn to is the palmettos. And when I go to the shows, I get asked at least 5 times a day, do you have palmetto corn snakes? When I'm clearly a ball python breeder. One of the vendors does breed them, and he sells out his hognoses, and his palmettos sell out in the first day in the first hour.
It's like saying, I want to make bells, but I'm using lesser. So a certain percent are going to have stupid eyes.
I agree.
It's the exact same concept. So like, what's the byproduct rate? Does he feed off all of his eyeball ones, or does he sell them discounted? Anyway? Yeah. I don't know. That's part of what troubles me. I'm not saying I'll never get into palmettos. They're fine. The most beautiful corn snake in the world is a Miami ogotee. It's a normal corn snake. It's already perfect in every way. Do you need confetti snake? Maybe. All right, moving on. I bred Japanese rat snakes for the first time. It was my first old world rat snake. It was actually an absolute delight. They like would fuck in the fucking living room in their little display cage, and it was kind of gross, graphic, but they got it done. She didn't double clutch. She had 8 eggs. I did incubate them at 82. They hatched at 60 days. 2 of them were late term dead, and one of them was kinked and had to be culled.
So was that too hot?
No, probably not. It's probably too stable. Usually colubrids do better if they have variability in their incubation temp, so I will ambient incubate them like I did the cornsnakes this year.
Okay.
Hopefully get rid of some of the issues. My males were not feeding ever on any food item. Live pinkies, boiled pinkies, washed and scented with chick down pinkies, washed and scented with lizard, washed and scented with frogs. Chicken blood, turns out what they wanted was duck juice from the inside of a duck, which sounds weird.
So you were able to get them to eat and...
Yeah, I did force feed them my tails to keep them going because it was a long time of them.
Right.
And I don't know why they were that picky because they're not supposed to be. No one has ever reported that Japanese ratsnakes are picky. And they're born very large. The eggs are huge. They can eat like a large pinky when they're born.
Wow.
Maybe even a small fuzzy, like a peach fuzzy. So you're like, oh yeah, this thing is just going to smash food right away. No, absolutely not. I tried those stupid reptilinks. No, didn't care about any of them. Quail, frog, none of it. They shouldn't have been that picky, so I don't know why. The females started better and were more consistent earlier. That's another rigor where I'm like, maybe there was something incubation-wise, that there's a gender difference in who was stronger or not. I did get them all to eat eventually. I had to, it turns out, like, give them really big cages. Like a normal FV5 is not big enough. They are too active, having too much fun. They needed like a 32 quart as a little baby.
What?
Yeah. So when people are like, I do blue beauties, I'm like, you can't run any kind of blue beauty number. You know, like big, active, large body rat snakes. You need big cages, a lot of excitement, things to climb on, stuff to do. They're always moving and having fun. I can't run, a big collection of all these big active colubrids. So I did hold back one Japanese rat snake, but I'm not going to have dozens of pairs or whatever.
So when she gets big enough, will you introduce her to your pair?
I don't know. I might breed her to the dad. I might not. Depends on... I don't want to. I wanted to find an additional Kunoshiro Island locality Japanese rat snake. I did not find one at the time when I felt like buying it. Are you asking me if I would cohab the trio or if I would just breed?
Correct. That's what I was asking.
Maybe. The cage they're in isn't big enough. If I could buy a... They probably deserve like a 6x4 by 2 deep. One of those like cabinet style ones.
Right.
Probably deserve something like that. That's even bigger for like a trio.
Okay. I just didn't know if you could. I don't know much about... Did you go have yours continuously?
Yes. I do take them... I do move to feed, which don't ever... Yeah, they're broodmating together right now. For anyone new who's starting out, do not cohab any animal at any time, unless it's a garter snake.
Ever.
Yeah. For other people, especially when it starts to be like mated pairs and they've been quarantined and they're crypto checked and they don't have NIDO and whatever else. If you have a really big display cage where there's no competition for any sort of resource, you can get away with it. Is it 100% without consequence? No.
Their huge enclosure in your living room is absolutely perfect for cohabbing a mated pair. I was just curious if that was...
Yeah, I probably wouldn't add a third one to that.
Okay.
Yeah. If I gave that exact enclosure, which is for everyone at home, like a 6 foot tall by like 2.5 or 3 foot by 2 foot box upright with like vertical ledges and stuff and branches for them to climb on. If I gave
have like multiple hot spots and stuff.
Yeah, and most of the time they don't even use the hotspot because they like ambient house temp pretty good. If I gave that enclosure to a smaller snake, like a corn snake, I could probably run a male and 3 females or something. But these things are big and obnoxious. They're always doing something, climbing up, sitting over here, pooping over there, doing this stuff, peeing on that. The bottom's bioactive, but I think the bottom can barely like decompose the 2 snakes worth of poop as it is. So that's the other consideration. I do like the Japanese rat snake. They're a delight. I would love to have like 40, but it's never going to happen. Too much space.
Well, in your future warehouse, maybe. They'll have their own room.
They did sell fantastically well. Like, there's no animal that I sell where people were like, can I get on a waiting list?
But those, you have a waiting list.
So I spent a lot of money on buying stuff this year to like build out my collections, but I didn't. The new species I added were Old World Ratsnakes because I think people are like, I want something different, but it needs to be just as easy as a cornsnake, and it needs to be fun and colorful and interesting to look at, but it has to be still easy. So I picked Russians, and I think it's pronounced Dione, but I say Diones in my head as my like added Old World Ratsnakes.
So you have a pair, now you have 3 different species of rats, a pair of 3 different species.
I have Slowinskii, which is a North American rat snake, and then cornsnakes. So there's 2 North Americans, 3 species of Old World. Dione, Russian, and Japanese.
Okay.
I would probably add even more. They're very reasonable to take care of. Like I'd add coxeye and mandarins and rain rats. They seem to be having a resurgence that I do not see in terms of like sales and interest and stuff in the other species I work with. Boas, corns. I mean, corns are having a really strong movement too, but I'm not selling the stuff I have currently that well. So I would need to like invest in like an obscene amount of sun-kissed or something to sell corns really well. It feels like the trend. So that's my Japanese rat snakes. So for the boas, there was only 2 planned litters, but we had 4 sort of reproduction events. The fire anery litter was planned and went successfully and had lots of babies that were very good. And then I had a litter that was planned between the Key West motley and a hypo-het call. She ovulated and only had 1 fetus in her. She gave birth to that fetus, that single fetus, and it died because it was premature. And she was still really big, so I thought she'd retained ova. So I had her euthanized, and she actually had some kind of like stomach cancer that was like swelling out her body. So that was unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
And then I had a female who was 3 years old choose to ovulate by herself with no male, and so she obviously slugged out. Most boas are paired at 4, so I should have seen her building earlier, or I didn't have the ultrasound, so I wouldn't have known, but I was like, great. So sometimes boas go even if you don't pair them.
I want them to.
Yeah,
that sucks.
They're just like, I'm just do what I want. I was like, this is dumb. I did notice she was building eventually, but I think I saw her building, and it was actually, she was already ovulating. So I put a male in. I was like, catch it, boy. And he didn't catch it. She had already ovulated. And at that point, it's...
And didn't you say they have to, like, they have massive courting behavior before they will breed?
Yes, but sometimes they don't care. They just do it anyway. Just want a male to show up. Made an Instagram post. I was like, I might start pairing boas at 3 no matter what, which people might like lose their fucking mind when they hear that. This female was not super big. She was not power fed. Her body was not that big. She didn't have like a mom head and a mom bod. She just looked like a 3-year-old. She just chose to ovulate anyway. And it's always easier for a female to push out a baby than a slug, because the slugs are sort of sticky and tacky, and the baby's slippery. So if you can catch females when they're ovulating early, better than having them slug out. I don't have any advice for anyone. Yes. So I'm not breeding my 3-year-olds this year. I have 2 of them, but I wonder if that's a mistake. I will watch them, though, closely. Make sure they don't ovulate.
And you have an ultrasound so you can check.
Yeah. The 4th litter was one where a female was ovulating again by herself. And I was like, stop doing this. This was supposed to be her year off. She bred last year. She was going to take a year off. And then I was going to pair her next year. She did it by herself. So I put a male in there. He actually got her in time. And that was the Key West motley to the hypo double het sharp snow. I don't know. People are going to be like, you did it on purpose. I don't know who pairs a boa in June on purpose because they're like ovulating right then. You know, most people pair their boas in the fall. She just was waiting for someone to DTF, and I wasn't giving it to her. And she started like pushing and being weird, and she wanted to be bred. And so I saw her doing like a pre-op spill. I was like, I'm just going to do it. She's just going to have babies because this is a waste of time to just let her slug out again like the other one did. And so she had 13 babies, no slugs.
Because it takes their energy either way.
Yeah, so a lot of people will argue that if you pair them at 3, you're forcing them to go. I'm like, I don't know. They seem to want to go no matter what.
You should pair 3-year-olds if they're going to go anyway, but you don't give them a male right now. You're just going to watch your 3-year-olds carefully.
Guess. I'm not sure. When I used to be in the boas, we always bred females at 3, or tried to anyway. And this is for Colombian mutt boas, not like nice locality boas that don't need to be paired until they're like 6. For the ones that are like half Colombian, half, Nicaraguan nonsense, 3 years old, they don't always go, but sometimes they win at 3. But now they're like, you shouldn't even think about pairing them until 4, 5, maybe 6, no matter how slow they've been growing or what's happening. I'm just like, that's not true. They seem to know that they're turning 3, and they sometimes want to ovulate, no matter what you do, in my experience. Message me.
I think it's better to provide a male if they're going to ovulate rather than slugging out.
Right, that's the ball python way is just
true.
Keep trying, and hopefully it'll be okay. I think the issue is that people in the past, they basically assumed a boa would breed 3 times and then die. So they're like, breed them real quick, get your 3 litters, and then she dies. You know, chameleons, they have a link between fecundity and lifespan. If you breed a female chameleon, you will kill her faster than if you don't let her breed.
Okay.
Or bearded dragons. But it turns out boas aren't like that. They can breed probably indefinitely if you don't give them arena or breed the crap out of them or feed them super aggressively. They could live their full 30, 40 years. But in the wild, they breed every other year pretty reliably because they just can't get enough calories by the time the year's up to breed the next season. So in captivity, you try to mimic that. But maybe I'm overfeeding mine by feeding them every 3 or 4 weeks because they want to breed anyway, even if I don't care what they think.
Right. I don't think that a boa that's being fed consistently, even correctly at 3 or 4 weeks, I know nothing, so don't take me as an expert, but I think in captivity, you're not triggering the need for the year off because they're
not doing anything, probably.
They're reliably getting that calorie intake.
And some people feed their boas even in the feeding season every 6 weeks. So those animals will definitely go every other year. But I don't say this out loud, but I don't necessarily buy into you need to feed them females only 10 times a year. All that depends on body condition and where they are in their growth curve and the size of what you're feeding them. I usually feed them a smaller thing more often, once a month, once every 3 weeks, whatever, than a giant thing once every 6 weeks. Other people do it differently. But my feeding schedule makes them ovulate, so maybe by definition I must be wrong. I just know that if you fed a boa every week from the time it was baby till the time it's 3, it will be probably 8 feet long and 20 pounds and will look like shit and will die. So you don't do that. But the exact number of
happy medium.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But boas are tough. My boa season, while successful enough, because I had 2 litters, which is my goal. I don't even want everybody to go. I just want 2 or 3 litters a year, basically, because that's enough boas that I'm having a good time selling them and it's not irritating to keep them and test the parents. They don't sell that well. They sell okay. I haven't sold hardly any locally, maybe 4 or 5. Most of them have been sold and shipped. I obviously didn't do shows, but online, not that great. Any snake over 1,000 has almost not sold at all until very recently. High-end market is not... I don't want to say it's not strong. I'm saying it's not strong for me because I'm sure someone else more famous is doing better than me in terms of selling the sort of investment priced boas.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well you do come tax return time.
Sure, I don't know. It's a little demoralizing, honestly, because most of my investment money, whatever, isn't in balls or corns. It's in boas. So if the boas are hard to move, then I need to reevaluate their percentage of my collection. I don't know if they have to go away all the way, but maybe I should just drop down to 5 adult females and 5 adult males of the highest quality possible, and that's
How
it.
many do you have currently? Adults.
I have 6 adult females, 2 that'll go next year, so 2 3-year-olds. The amount of males matter, maybe 10 males or something. And then a bunch of holdbacks from last year's production and this year's production. But if the total number of females can only be 5, then I need to get rid of a number
lot
of holdbacks, females specifically, and just power up my males or let stuff age up and then sell the females that are less beautiful or less powerful or less interesting genetically or whatever, which is fine to do that. But if that's all that I can personally sell, then that's the way it goes. The boa market was just as strong COVID-wise, but my understanding talking to little birds is that most boa breeders, you can actually do boas full-time exclusively. There's enough money in boas that you can be a full-time boa only breeder. Or ball python. People are like, the only thing you can ever do is ball pythons. Well, that's not true. You can do lots of things if you just do them correctly. So you can definitely do it, but the little birds have told me that a normal full-time boa breeder assumes that a litter will take 2 years to fully sell if it's like a high-end litter. So you have to have a management strategy that means you hold on to stuff for a long time and you sit on it to move all of it. You don't necessarily like wholesale it because you're not going to get anything. So that is a little concerning because I'm like, I have enough room to hold even 3 litters of yearlings or 2-year-olds for 2 years, where if half the litter is still here. You know what I mean? Because that's 15 snakes in a 28 cord or something. That's a lot. Especially when they have to be separate from the ball pythons and everything else.
Right.
So I'm not sure. If someone wants to tell me all the nuances of the boa market, that would be great. But right now it just looks sort of okay. Anything sub 1,000, maybe even 500, sold relatively quickly at like a pet price. The high-end market was not that exciting in terms of sales. Not like maybe I'm pricing them a little aggressively too, but I don't know anybody else that gives an explicit arena guarantee in the post.
Right.
So that's got to be worth something. And if it's not, then fuck this hobby, because fuck you guys. It costs a lot of money to test them every year before they're paired, and then every year after they're paired, just to make sure that boas are still negative. All right, I think we did it.
We should be. We did it. I got to go get my munchkin.
Thanks, Munchkin. All right, where can they find you, Jana King?
You can find me on Instagram at ASM Royal Tails, and you can also find me on Facebook, but Instagram's better.
All right, you can find me this week only, maybe not next week, but definitely this week on Instagram at Hare Hollow Farm. Thank you.